Well, to discuss this story further, we can now bring in Middle East analyst Ceng Sagnic. Ceng, you're very welcome to the programme. Now, as we just heard, President Erdogan accused countries of disregarding the democratic process in Venezuela and showing a totalitarian mindset by supporting an unelected leader. So are those reasonable accusations, in your opinion?
Not in my opinion, but in Turkey's opinion, these are very reasonable accusations, because Turkey sees itself as one of the part of the camp that has been opposing the Western intervention in various countries all over the globe. So in this perspective, the ballot box should be valued in a way that the state itself is valued. And the perception is that the rhetorical intervention of the United States and some other countries that follows the United States harms the democratic processes in these countries, even though these processes have been criticized. As per the Turkish president's remarks and the Turkish state's official position, these problems should be solved within the democracy of these countries without any foreign intervention.
And you just touched upon it there briefly, but Erdogan's statement puts him at odds with the US. Could this widen the rift between them?
Yes, it is. And there is an interesting point here. Erdogan directly addressed President Trump, indicating that his counterpart, President Trump, is the address to go in the United States. That the disputes between the Turkish government and the American establishment continue, but President Trump and President Erdogan have reached some sort of a consensus. But this situation, Turkey's outspoken support for the Venezuelan president and the process in Venezuela can easily turn into another diplomatic stalemate or a crisis should President Trump respond to President Erdogan's remarks.
Back in 2016, Erdogan himself was the target of a failed coup. Could that be one reason why he's showing solidarity with Maduro?
This is one of the reasons as the Turkish government survived a failed coup attempt, and it continues to accuse Western intervention in 2016 to overthrow the AKP government. This is one of the reasons that the Turkish state and the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan associates himself with those leaders who are under Western pressure. And this association comes with the analysis that there could always be a chain effect if these are not stopped. But in the meantime, the Turkish rhetoric, the Turkish official narrative since 2016 has been increasingly anti-Western and anti-American, which requires Turkey to take action when this sort of actions are taken by Western states, especially in intervention in the political processes of countries that the Turkish president associates himself, or the Turkish state is considered to be under a similar threat. The situation actually goes back to the so-called coup of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi in Egypt, and the Turkish state and the Turkish public initially associated the Western support for President Sisi against the former President Morsi as a plot against Egypt that could easily be repeated in Turkey if the domino effect, if the chain effect is not stopped. A similar situation, a similar scenario is spoken here, that Turkey sees itself a part of a camp that is tasked with opposing Western intervention in countries. But in the meantime, as I said, the Turkish official state narrative has been increasingly anti-Western, especially after Turkey reconciliated with Russia and formed an alliance in Syria. And when it comes to countries like Venezuela and the outspoken intervention of the US government in the Venezuelan process, Turkey sees itself tasked with opposing these outspokenly to mobilize support in cases of intervention in any other country, especially Venezuela, Turkey, and Turkish allies.
And the Turkish president was speaking just after his visit to Moscow, and his views on Venezuela are quite similar to those of President Putin. Are we seeing a growing alignment between Turkey and Russia on foreign policy now? As
I said in the beginning of my speech today, the the strategic alliance between Turkey and the US government is no more functioning. And there's only one alliance, is that it's between President Erdogan and President Trump on a very certain, simple matter, that is northeastern Syria. There has been no reconciliation between Turkey and the US on any other issues. So the Turkish alliance with Russia continues and continues to grow. And the current rapprochement between President Erdogan and President Trump is not going to bring about a reconciliation between the Turkish and the US establishments. There are many other problems, including ongoing US support to Kurdish groups in Syria, the U.S. policy in Iraq, the U.S. policy regarding the so-called partakers in the failed coup of 2016, and many other issues, including the increasingly growing Turkish anti-Western rhetoric, which has been used to consolidate the Turkish public to support President Erdogan. So I don't believe there's any return from Turkish-Russian relations anytime soon, and I don't believe that the current time-limited rapprochement between Ankara and Washington regarding the potential withdrawal of U.S. forces from Syria can bring about a total reconciliation between the Turkish and U.S. establishments, so that we are set to see more remarks coming from the Turkish president against the U.S., and I expect that if this rhetoric continues, President Trump will respond to Recep Tayyip Erdogan's remarks on Venezuela.
Okay, appreciate your thoughts on the topic there. Middle East analyst Ceng Sagnic, thank you for coming on to RT.
Thank you.